Little Red Riding Hood.
What a beautiful
Once upon
day
a
for
time,
walk.
in a quiet
wonder what
village
adventures
near
I'll
a
find
vast
today.
green forest, there lived a little girl whom everyone called Little Red Riding Hood because of her bright red cloak. This cloak had been sewn by her kind grandmother with her own hands. The fabric was soft and warm, and whenever the girl wore it, it felt as if a piece of her grandmother's love rested on her shoulders. She loved this gift so much that she did not want to take it off, even on warm days. She lived with her mother in a wooden cottage with blue windows. In the mornings, the smell of fresh bread filled their home, and in the evenings, the sound of their laughter could be heard from the small yard. Her mother always taught her to be kind, to listen carefully, and most importantly, not to talk to strangers on the way through the forest. One morning, when a thin mist lay over the ground and the sunlight slowly rose behind the trees, her mother took a basket and filled it with fresh bread, soft cake, and a jar of honey.
You're welcome.
Then she said,
Here you go,
"My dear, your
Thank you,
grandmother
but
has
I'm
not
a
been
little
feeling
scared."
well for a
You
few
are very
days.
brave.
Please
will.
take these to her so she may feel better. But remember, do not leave the main path in the forest and do not speak to anyone." Little Red Riding Hood nodded happily, put on her cloak, picked up the basket, and set off with joy in her heart, excited to make her grandmother happy. As she entered the forest, everything looked like a living painting. Sunlight passed through the branches and made golden spots on the ground. Birds were singing, squirrels were jumping from branch to branch, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. She stopped a few times to watch butterflies and smiled. But in that same forest lived a cunning wolf who was always looking for an opportunity. From behind the bushes, he saw Little Red Riding Hood and thought, "What a perfect chance! If I am clever, I can eat both the girl and the food she carries." The wolf approached slowly and said in a friendly voice, "Hello, little girl. Where are you going so happily?" Little Red Riding Hood, distracted by the beauty of the forest and forgetting her mother's warning, cheerfully replied, "I am going to visit my grandmother. She is sick and I am bringing her some food." The wolf asked, "Where does she live?" And the innocent girl told him the directions. The wolf looked around and said, "What beautiful flowers grow here. Why don't you pick some for your grandmother? She will surely be delighted." Little Red Riding Hood
flowers are
thought this
so
was a
pretty.
lovely idea, so
This
she
one
stepped
smells
off the main
wonderful.
path to gather flowers. That was all the chance the wolf needed. He ran quickly along a shorter path toward the grandmother's house. The wolf knocked on the door and imitated the girl's voice, saying, "Grandmother, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood." The grandmother, who was weak and ill, replied, "The door is open, dear. Come in." The wolf entered, hid the grandmother in a cupboard, put on her clothes, and lay in the bed. He pulled the cap down over his forehead so his face would not be clearly seen. Soon after, Little Red Riding Hood arrived with a bouquet of colorful flowers. She knocked and said, "Grandmother, it's me." The wolf answered in a thin voice, "Come in, dear." She entered the room. It was a bit dark and a strange smell filled the air. She walked closer to the bed and looked carefully. "Grandmother, why are your ears so big?" she asked. "So I can hear you better," said the wolf. "Why are your eyes so big?" "So I can see you better." She stepped back slightly and asked, "And why are your teeth so big?" The wolf suddenly shouted, "So I can eat you better." He jumped out of the bed. Little Red Riding Hood screamed. Fortunately, at that very moment, a woodcutter passing by the house heard the scream. He rushed in with his axe. Seeing the wolf, he fled and ran back into the forest. The woodcutter rescued the grandmother from the cupboard.
I've got you,
With
Grandma.
tearful
Are you all
eyes,
right?
Little
Yes,
Red
dear.
Riding
Thank you.
Hood hugged her grandmother
was so
tightly.
scared.
The grandmother smiled and said, "What matters is that you are safe, my dear." They sat together, ate the food from the basket, and rested for a while. Little Red Riding Hood told them everything that had happened and understood why her mother had warned her not to speak to strangers. When she returned home, her mother embraced her warmly. Little Red Riding Hood promised that from then on she would always listen carefully to advice. From that day forward, whenever she walked through the forest, she stayed on the path and never spoke to strangers again. And the forest once again became a peaceful and lovely place for her, but this time with an important lesson forever in her heart.